appreciate it. Appreciate everybody this morning getting up early and attending our 7 a.m. ASPE Chapter 19 meeting this morning. I have a few housekeeping ideas that I'd like to pass along to everybody. Please make sure your phones are muted. If Ron and I, Fred, when I introduced Fred introduced Ron. Everybody knows Ron anyway, but Ron, you'll be able to tell them if they want to ask you a question to either hold off or ask during and how we're going to do it. So Jason, you'll probably have to watch the hands raising or something like that. Okay.
You're muted, Jason.
I got it.
Okay.
Like to tell everybody that we had a great meeting last Friday for the board. We announced that we have 3 scholarship winners, and we'll be issuing those at next month's monthly meeting on May 21st. Pretty hard to beat some of the competitions out there, so we'd appreciate if next year we make sure we get more of the local chapters to get the people out. Everybody on this phone call right now would like to let us know if you have a student member that you know, an intern or something, so that we can get those directly to them next year. This year we had elections. We also have a couple new board members involved with our chapter. They will be induced next month along with the old members. So we do appreciate everybody being at the next meeting also, which I'll hand out the scholarships then. Okay. We have one item that I'd like to make sure that everybody's aware of now. We're planning on a trivia night. We did not hold our spring one because of lack of interest, because of everybody's tired of Zooming and go to a meeting. So we're planning to hold an in-person one on October 23rd. Okay. So if everybody pencil that down, that's what we're planning on. So you'll probably see something coming out from us probably in September, early September, so that we get it on your calendars again, but it'll be October 23rd, and we'll probably hold it, depending on how many tables we get. We may hold it the same place we have last couple of years. So this program today is for minority participation. The guest speaker is Ron Unterreiner, which everybody knows. And Freddie, would you introduce him for the rest of the group, and then go ahead and go with the program?
Well, I think everybody knows Ron and what a good job he's been doing with the minority people and with the people organization. Ron has been around the construction business for 60 years, and he worked for a very hard man for many years, and he's done a great job. So I'd like to introduce Ron Unterreiner, and Ron, take it over.
Well, thank you very much. I've never heard of Mr. Cummer talked about as being a very hard man to work for. So hello to everyone. I thank you for the invitation to address this prestigious group. I want to make this presentation interactive and allow plenty of time for me and some other great diversity leaders on this call to respond to your questions and concerns. But first, I want to give you some important background. I'll talk for about 10 minutes, and then just hold your questions until then, and then we'll get into responding to anything you'd like to know. So first of all, I greatly respect the work of ASPE and appreciate the support and the interest that this organization has given me with my with the cause of diversity in our industry and with my work with people. In my work with the minority contracting community, I will tell you that estimating may well rank as the #1 request for small emerging firms that are searching for a way to enter and conquer the challenges of our industry. And estimating is such a scary word to so many, regardless of minority status or majority status. It's where the process starts, and the very concept of sitting down and figuring out how much time it would take, how much material one needs to buy, how much equipment and tools they will need. I estimate general condition administrative needs, and how much profit one can earn. It's a fearful concept to any new firm, really, and especially to the several of the minority firms I work with. So I would love to explore ways that this group professionals can play a larger role in the success of minority participation. So I am excited to be with you this morning. Briefly, let me tell you about my work with the minority contracting community. I started what I refer to as a non-organization called People 8 years ago. And the idea behind People was quite simply to introduce minority firms to majority firms and allow for the opportunity for all to mix it up with each other, talk with each other, share stories, get to know each other, and obviously, ultimately, to work with each other. I felt the need for including minority and women-owned firms on the major construction sites around the city was something that was not going to go away. And I believe we can all agree that this need is getting greater and more important every month, every year. A successful people meeting would include a gathering in a room where 50% of the participants were minority-owned, contracting or professional firms, and 50% were majority firms. And that was my primary measure of success with People. Over the past 8 years, I truly believe it has been a most successful venture. And although slowed considerably by the pandemic, the need to meet and know each other and the need for minority firms to find a way to the main stage is still very much present. And so People will continue its work. Last year, just before the pandemic shut the country down, I formed a group called WBEDC, which is a group of women-owned business enterprises of design and construction. We have 35 WBE certified firms, all represented by the owners of the firms on this list. And the primary purpose and mission of this organization is to share successes and challenges and explore how to work with each other and advance the cause of each individual firm. This is the most powerful group of women, and many of these firms are making great headway in our industry. For all on this call, I'm most happy to share that contact list if you would like it. I found myself working with so many women-owned firms that I thought it'd be a great idea to get everybody together and kind of share what some of the challenges that they have, and it's really worked out nice. These are all firms of comparable size. I did not ask some of the larger firms like Tarleton. See John on the call because I wanted to save some of those the larger firms to come in as guest speakers. And of course, when the pandemic hit, our meeting in person really stopped. So one thing, there's never a fee for anything with People or WBEDC, strictly on a nonprofit basis. And since retiring from Rhodey, about 4 years ago, I started a nonprofit consulting firm called People of Construction, where I offer one-on-one consulting services to any minority firm requesting such services. And I currently work with roughly 20 firms, some very directly, some simply responding to individual challenges or requests for help. So just to quickly summarize my work and involvement with the minority contracting community, I know the community, I know their needs, I understand well their challenges, and I know and respect the challenges of our industry. So what is minority participation? Why do we give it so much attention? Is it needed? Is it a good thing for our industry, or is it a waste of time and effort? We have been talking about minority participation for years. Are we getting anywhere? So who are the players in our marketplace that take minority participation seriously? And how in the world is an estimator supposed to put a dollar value on minority participation on their estimates of job costs? So there's lots of questions, and like most movements in life, people have varying opinions. So let me start our discussion today, but I want to quote from Ron Amelin, the editor of SPM magazine. I don't know if anybody gets that, but I just received the current edition, Small Business Monthly, and they featured 100 St. Louisians you should know to succeed in business. In introducing this feature article, Ron said the following: at the end of the day, if we truly want to be a destination for entrepreneurs and small business owners, what we really need is more people stepping up to unselfishly help others succeed. This means we need larger companies taking smaller, younger firms under their wing to incubate them, helping them to grow and introducing them to possible contacts. This means we need smaller companies doing the same thing with even smaller companies. This means we need all of them to encourage our children to think about owning their own businesses. If we want to be known as a community of entrepreneurs, we first need to be a community that's willing to reach out and help others succeed, not for any personal or financial gain, just to help others succeed. It was interesting to note that roughly 30 of the 100 people on the list were people of color or female. And I couldn't help but wonder what this mixture would have looked like 20 years ago or 10 years ago. I think it would have been far less. And I think in 10 years from now, we probably would be about 50-50. So I loved Ron's introduction. Although the article really had nothing to do with minority participation, the discussions are the same for small emerging minority firms. The ultimate success of minority participation, as well as new majority-owned businesses, depends on successful companies stepping up to help the smaller emerging firms to succeed. And that seems to be quite tough for many companies to do. First and foremost, you have to want to. Second, you actually have to do it and not simply talk about it. And many feel they're helping to develop a competitor. And truthfully, in some cases they are. And I think we all know several cases where firms have helped minority firms that have grew up to compete against them and win jobs against them. So it's a tough concept, very much needed though, if we're going to be successful with minority participation. So I want to provide this group with a few facts surrounding minority participation. There are 816 firms that are currently certified to be MBE or WBE by the Lambert Certification Office. There are other certifying agencies, but the Lambert office represents the city and is the certifying office most accepted by the major buyers of construction services in our marketplace. Of those 816 firms, I would estimate there are maybe 200 firms that are union affiliated and established enough to perform on the major commercial construction projects in our marketplace. I doubt if there are many on this call that could sit down and name more than 20 or 30 MBE or WBE certified firms. Those of us that work in diversity and inclusion could probably name 50 or 60 if you gave us enough time. The city of St. Louis is probably the major owner that requires minority participation on their projects. MSD is a major supporter and user of minority participation, as is MoDOT, Bi-State, and other city or state governed agencies. BJC, WashU, Ameren, Monsanto, Bayer, Mercy, SSM, St. Louis Zoo, School District, St. Louis Community College, and other major private owners all currently require and support minority participation. Some more strongly than others. St. Louis County has just entered the mix and hopefully will increase their level of attention to minority participation. The Cortex development site, located within city limits and in a city-defined TIF district, has been a strong driver of minority participation. The NGA project, as well as other government work in the area, have certain goals for minority participation and generally in the same range as the city goals. And of course, other smaller private owners may or may not require minority participation. The current city requirements for minority participation are 21% for African American owned firms, 2% for Hispanic certified firms, 0.5% Asian American, 0.5% Native American, and 11% for women-owned firms. Most owners requiring minority participation are in the same general range. It does differ from company to company, but I think for the most part, somewhere between 21 and 25% is typical, and somewhere between 5 or 6 to 11% is typical for women-owned firms. And of course, the private owners, they can set their own goals. They can do whatever they want. Up until recently, minority participation in projects were simply goals. If they were not met, well, so be it. It really didn't make any difference. The project went on. I do think that it's changing. Society is causing that change. And certain owners now have penalties assessed against the GCs for not making their goals. I think BJC started that with their tire project. I'm not a big fan of penalties. My feeling on penalties is just not use that general contractor again, and that would certainly be the ultimate penalty. Many of the larger general contractors have their own in-house goals, regardless of the requirements of the project. I love to see that, and many of the most respected firms in town are doing that and are getting more serious about it every day. Most of the larger prime subcontractors take minority participation seriously, and they look for strategic partners to help them achieve their goals. And of course, many ignore minority participation altogether. I believe, though, that the firms that do not believe in minority participation or ignore the requirement will be left behind at some point. There are certain rules that must be followed to receive credit for minority participation. Unfortunately, these rules change from project to project, company to company. But for the most part, it is expected that the minority firms operate in much the same fashion as majority firms. That is, they estimate their own work, buy their own materials, rent their own equipment, and install those materials using their own labor. It is not considered acceptable for a GC or a prime sub to simply purchase materials and run those purchase orders through companies owned by minorities, and or simply allow a minority-owned firm to work on a project for a certain number of hours without a defined scope. Certainly this happens all the time. It is not an acceptable way to help a company grow and to be successful. And as we all know, rules are made to be modified, adjusted, or just plain ignored. And certainly that happens in this case. So before I open it up for discussion, let me give you my take on the challenges that are faced by minority firms. First and foremost, the greatest challenge is adequate working capital. Most minority firms have limited access to conventional or even unconventional financing. They do not have homes that would support a substantial second mortgage, and they do not have other means of collateral. Therefore, they are simply unable to perform on major projects without some adjustment to the unworkable payment practices of most major owners. And when I say most minority firms, I'm really talking about 99% of minority firms. The second biggest challenge, mainly caused by lack of capital, is estimating awareness and expertise. Just because you come from the trades and know how to lay pipe does not mean you can properly estimate the cost of that pipe and the freight cost it takes to get the pipe to the project, the cost to get the pipe to the proper laydown area, the equipment you need, the delays, the miscellaneous materials and tools, the general conditions, and the many other unforeseen variables. And anybody on this estimating group know what I'm talking about there. That is a huge challenge for, and it's not related to minorities, just a huge challenge for any new firm starting, coming in out of the trades. And maybe the third biggest challenge is business development, marketing, and what I would call visibility. You must make yourself known in this industry. You must shout your name from the rooftops every chance you get. You got to be like Jerry Bolden here, that's on every networking event you go to. And simply put, you must promote yourself and your company. And this is not always easy, and it's definitely not natural for most minority firms. We're not a mixing society, so it's not easy for a minority firm to go knock on the door of Tarleton or SM Wilson or McCarthy and say, hey, I would like to talk to your estimating group. Certainly happens, but it's not natural. And that is where my people networking events come in, and that's the one challenge I'm trying to help minimize. People is about breaking down those barriers and giving people the confidence to seek out solutions with one another. There are other challenges such as accounting, administrative, cost control, but if you walk through most of the issues that minority firms face, they can be traced to the three major issues, with access to capital leading the way. I could talk forever about the problems I see and experience on an everyday basis, but I want to hear and respond to your concerns. And I also see many great leaders of diversity on this call. We got Steve Lewis, we got Monica, we got Maggie. And I think I saw some others. So I have some great representatives that can certainly help me with responding to your answer to your question. So let me end by saying that I believe in the concept of minority participation, commercial construction, and life in general, as we all know, is not a level playing field. But we must set some reasonable guidelines, and we must play fair, and we must all get serious about meeting the goals we set, not spending our energy and efforts trying to figure out how to get around the rules. For any company out there wanting assistance in reaching minority participation goals, whether you be a general contractor or a subcontractor, you can email me anytime. I can be of great help and can guide you to some great hardworking, passionate people who can perform if we work together to eliminate some of the challenges beyond their control. So thanks for allowing me the opportunity to speak. We have some exciting things coming down the pike in diversity. I'm working with some people now that are putting together a exciting program. I'm going to have some actual physical space over at Del Mar Divine if everything goes through, and I think it's really going to be a game-changing place that where minorities, it's going to be a gathering place where minorities can come, feel comfortable, and we'll have plenty of business support people there to help them in all of their challenges. So I'm looking forward to that, and I would definitely come back to this group and let you know about that when it comes, because I'm gonna be asking for your help. So I'd like to open up for questions. I'd be happy to respond to anything, and like I say, we have some good people on here that if anything that I can't respond to, I'm sure they will. So any questions from anybody?
Just remember, you're all muted, so if you can raise your hand, I'll do my best to. Let me grow this up. Patty. Oops. Sorry, I muted you.
Unmute. Okay. I was just curious when, Ron, you were talking about the estimating role in your mission. Is the estimator, the person that's talking to, let's say, a company like mine, and he could possibly bring me to the table, or is that a project manager or the construction manager that just really is the person looking at that piece of the whole formula when they're when they're bidding a job?
Well, I think it certainly differs from company to company. A lot of the major GCs will have a person that may estimate the cost of the project and carry it on through as a project manager, or they may well have a separate estimating department that and a pre-construction department that puts an estimate together and turns it over to a project manager. So it can vary from company to company. I would say most of the I would think anyway, and Fred Walter maybe can help me with this, but I would think that most of the prime subcontractors probably have a guy that estimates the project and then manages that project to completion.
That's true, Ron. Most of the smaller companies, even like the company that I'm helping out as a minority, you know, the estimator is the project manager because we're not big enough to have an estimating department and project managers. Patty, one of the things you asked, who should be taking you or whatever to introduce, again, your estimator is your core person. They're going to be communicating with the estimating departments of the general contractors or major subs that you're bidding with. And that person in you as the owner should get personal contact with the people you're dealing with. You need to know what that face looks like. You need to have a communication with these people and knowing that, you know, when you bid these jobs, a lot of people, in a lot of small contractors too. I mean, they email a bid out and they just walk away. They don't stay on top of, you know, do we have it? What's going on? You know, and so they never hear about, do they have the job? They've never followed up to find out. They don't know where they stand. And you have to know this because you need to know, are you in the market? Is your pricing right? Is your labor right? You know, so it's all communication.
I can chime in on that a little bit, Patty. This is Monica Bailey from McCarthy. Good morning, everybody. Yeah, I would agree with what Fred and Ron said, and every company is probably a little different, but the estimating department and that pre-con director is just as important as like our operations project director. Everything kind of stops and starts with the estimating department. When we're looking for contractors, M or Ws, or even primes, they're the ones who keep the databases. They approve people who get into the databases. And our owners are meeting with the estimating team, you know, kind of in general for McCarthy more than the ops team at that time. So they're very interested in who we have on board and where these companies are and you know, what their status is. However, when the ops gets involved and you actually work on one of our projects, they do start to meet with those operations people to sort of give like a track record of how people performed on those projects after they've, you know, been approved to work there. They're always involved in the pre-qualification effort and things like that. So I would concur with that. The estimating folks are the very important people to kind of really, you know, it's part of our job to help introduce some of these and get some of these guys and get your foot in the door and making sure they are aware who you are so you can, when they're putting their bid list together, you're on it.
Yeah, and another thing is a lot of people can't afford to have a full-time estimator, but what happens to many contractors, especially small contractors, is they'll estimate a job, they'll get 2 or 3 jobs. Now they're busy trying to do the jobs, and now they're not estimating. And you know, your roller coaster is going up, and then all of a sudden, them jobs start coming down, and now you're looking for work, and your roller coaster is going to the bottom, and you have nothing. So you have to get a happy medium that you have somebody still estimating projects while you're doing projects.
I think Catherine Taylor raised her hand.
Yeah. Hey, Ron, are you doing any outreach with the unions? We're having real problems with the unions and outreach.
You know, I deal with a lot of the unions. Probably in the last 8 years, I've probably been in almost every union's office, supporting some of the minority contractors. But I have found unions, to me, I've found them to be somewhat uncooperative. It depends on the union with the whole issue of minority participation, and not very supportive.
Right.
I feel like the carpenters definitely play a role. I think the laborers play a role. I don't think the other unions get all that excited about minority participation, do they, Monica? I see you shaking your head. I can say anything I want because I'm not associated with any union or any company. Other people can't, but I wish that they would be more supportive. And when I'm talking about minority participation, I'm really talking about the ownership of the company, and I'm talking about the company participation rather than the on-site and the workers in the field, which is a whole different. It's another arena altogether, and that's of course where the unions get involved with all the workers. But yeah, it's tough. But email me, Catherine. I'll be happy to talk to you about what issues you're having. I assume it's with the roofers union in St. Louis.
Well, I guess we're luckier than most, Ron. I mean, we're having trouble finding any kind of labor, union or not. My union will let us put anybody we hire into the union. So, I mean, we're lucky in that part. But it would be much better if they had their own outreach program to try and encourage some minority participation. We're lucky that we can hire whomever we want. They just have to join the union.
Yeah.
But it would be so much better if they had some encouragement from the leadership in the union themselves.
Well, I definitely agree with you. And there's a lot of people in this call would support that outreach by the unions. And some do. And there are certainly the carpenters with their BUD program that's out there trying to get more people to join the unions and to get into the trades. And there's all kinds of programs that are geared to that for the youth. But in general, I mean, you don't really see too many unions holding outreach meetings.
Ron,
Yeah.
on the sheet metal pipe fitter and plumber side, our locals have nobody at the hall, and we really haven't even got started with some of the stuff that's coming up. And we're going to have, they're going to be bringing in travelers from all over the country. And so we'll be getting people that don't even live here that are working on our projects.
Yeah, I agree. I think Rochelle, who's on this call, is probably the only African-American female in the sheet metal trades.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I mean, that can't make sense, can it?
No, you have no idea. You don't know the people, and you don't know how their productivity is. So, yes.
Anybody else have a question?
I was just going to make a quick comment. This video will be available on, well, I'll send everybody that's attending today out a copy of this video, and then also it'll be on our YouTube channel usually a day or so after I've got this kind of all processed, but just so I've got a couple of direct messages asking for a copy of it, so it'll be available to everybody. So. Ron, one other thing too, a couple of other people have asked, about a list of these contractors. Is there a place you can find that online, or is that something just email you about?
You can definitely feel free. Anybody can email me, and I will be happy to give you my contact list of minority firms, and also my contact list of the women-owned firms that I talked about. Yeah, unfortunately, I don't do a good enough job of keeping it up. I wish I did. But I probably have 150 minority firms on my list. So I'd be happy to send that to anybody that would like it. And the women-owned firm list is about 35 firms, and it's very current and very up to date. So I'd be happy to send that around. It's a good group of people, good representatives of our industry, and you're going to be hearing more from this group as time goes on here. So,
Jason, when you send out this email about the recording, make sure Ron's email is copied into the CC so that everybody's got Ron. I've seen it popped up a couple times.
I was about ready to press send on Ron's email in the chat box too. Is that if that's all right with Ron?
yeah, sure.
Okay.
I see Robert Adams had a, yeah.
So, like Fred was saying right now, the sheet metal workers and the pipe fitters are all the guys are out of the hall. So you think they would want to participate and try to bring people in. But most times that goes against what the unions are trying to do, is have enough work for their members.
Right. Yeah. It's a tough question, and there's a lot of that the BUD program has it's kind of wide open, and they try to introduce people to all of the trades. But if you follow all the people that went through the BUD program, about 95% of them go into carpentry or labor, because they're the only two unions that really welcome them and allow them in. Sometimes it takes literally months to get into some of these trades. And, I don't know how you ever build your workforce with some of the rules they have.
Can I say something?
Yes. You sure may.
Yeah, so like with the sheet metal workers, we have a list of minorities. And like I just hired an apprentice and he was on that list for 5 years. So it's like, they're able to get on the list if you pass, you have to pass a lot of tests or whatever and their qualifications, but they make it so strict. But they say we need minorities. And it's like they won't, what I've seen is like they won't budge to, kind of, put more minorities on the list. So then you have everybody scrambling around trying to find minorities, and then soon someone get laid off, it's that thing, yeah, you're a minority, and so you don't really have to worry about being laid off long. But because the amount of minorities that's actually accepted into the union is so small, and like one guy I know, like his company doesn't even have work for him, but he's just paying him weekly to come into just sit in the warehouse because he doesn't want to.
Breaking up, Rochelle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree.
So, Ron, I had a question for you then. We're talking about several things here. We're talking about the minority firms. We're also talking about minority workers.
Right.
You know that we have AGC's representative on here, Steve Lewis. Anthony's not on, but I wonder if the AGC would support making sure that when they have these new contracts come up with the unions, that they sit down and really talk about this program of getting minority tradesmen in the workforce as part of their incentives to getting the pay increases. I don't know if I've ever seen anybody but a family member of the elevators union. They're so tight that, if you're not a brother, and I mean physical brother or sister or something like that, you don't get in the hall. So I'm wondering if the AGC can put their foot down a little bit more and help us get the participations of boots on the ground. But as far as the other side, how about the financing? Also, I know we've had programs like Simple Plan, you know, I was at Tarleton, Bob Elsman talked about that many years ago, that they mentored firms. And I'm sure John Doerr would probably know more about that. He was there longer than me now, so.
I know a lot about the Temple Plan program. I was involved. It was a mentor protege program, which was a joint venture between the AGC and the St. Louis Minority Business Council. It has morphed into, it was an AGC sponsored program nationally. Today, the preeminent program for mentoring is the Regional Union Construction Program, where each company receives an advisory board to work with them. Alan Richter runs the program along with Kevin Wilson. I'm glad to help provide any information I can about the Regional Union Construction Center. It's been very successful for the participants.
Steve, what about the AGC assisting with discussions with the union about how to bring more people into the trade? I mean, I think you guys do that already. But what John is talking about, when the contracts come up, what can we do to make sure that that happens on a more aggressive basis?
Labor has been very receptive to talking to us. I spoke with John Stifler yesterday and speak with the unions regularly. And they talked about the impending labor shortage with the work that's coming up at a lot of the large owners in town, and they expect a workforce shortage. I think the big issue is not necessarily that the unions aren't interested or willing. It's that, will we have work for people once they get into the union? So people get trained as they, will they be able to have continuous work, or will they be laid off? I know the electricians have done some pretty remarkable things recently, and the mechanical contractors as well, to try to help grow the workforce. The issue is if you have a peak in a valley, you work on a large project for some time, which is no different than our companies. When that work ends, if you go and you sit on the bench and you're not working, you find something else to do. And that's what happens to a lot of the people in the craft professionals. If we had a way to keep them employed, I think we would have sustainable employment.
I agree with that. The problem is we bring these people in, and we're not like a manufacturing plant. We can't guarantee them 40 hours a week, and they're making good money, and they work 3 months and they're off 2 months, and they work a month, and they, you know, and it's hard for them to support their family.
Fred, I'm going to push back a little bit, because your core people, you keep working. Okay. If you have to put them in the yard, you keep them working. So Jerry Anderson asked me a few years ago, what would be my magic wand thing? And I said, keep apprentices working, whether that's a grant from the owners, whatever it is, putting it in the contracts, but you've got to do that. And then you've got to track what's happening with these people on an ongoing basis. You can't look at the numbers once a year.
I agree with that.
Tom, I agree with that, Tom. And I think most people try to keep their apprentices going. It's when they come out of apprenticeship and they become journeymen, and they're, you know, like the carpenters, I mean, they don't have a hiring hall, so they have to go look for their work and have relationships with the GCs to be working. Pipe fitter wise and sheet metal wise, we have hiring halls, but again, you know, you get laid off, you go to the bottom of the bench, and then you got to, you know, wait for your turn to be hired again.
Yep.
I have a question. Well, I got a comment too. I've been in the field for 26 years. I've seen one black face on an elevator crew in all those 26 years. But then this estimating thing. So John, I believe you and I talked several times. You tried to hook me up with a person or two, and it never came through. So my issue is getting help with estimating still. I'm using an estimating service now called One Build. I just started using them because I can't find any help. So what do I have to do to get some estimating assistance here in St. Louis?
Jerry, question that everybody on this call would like to know, what is your main estimating needs is by trade? What does your firm mainly do?
We do carpentry work,
Okay.
doors, frames, hardware, rough carpentry, and cabinets or casework.
Okay. I know of one guy that's laid off. He's actually working for some of your competitors out here on a as needed basis currently. I tried to get him a full-time employment with somebody and he didn't want to work full-time. He'd rather work part-time. So maybe I can help you with that individual's name. He's a carpentry estimator.
All right.
So send me an email. I don't know if you still have mine. If not, I can always send yours, Sherry.
Hey, John, are there any retired estimators that would be willing to come in and, or do estimators ever retire?
Hey,
We never retired.
yeah.
We never
No.
retired.
There's a bunch of them on this call right now. That should
Yeah.
be.
Yeah.
We just fade away.
Hey, Ron, I'm not sure if I heard you correctly, but were you gonna have a place where your contractors get together? I mean, if it was, I'm not really retired, but I'm partially retired, I guess you could
Yeah.
say. And I would be willing to come and help. There are so many things about estimating that are the same from trade to trade.
Right.
Right.
So, I mean, if you had a place where people gathered, that we could say, like every other Monday night, we're going to meet at such and such place to talk about estimating principles, so that if I wouldn't have to be committed to every Monday night, that's something that I certainly would be interested in doing. And I'm sure that we can round up a lot of other people to do that kind of thing, maybe once a month, where you actually sit down and you talk about estimating principles and things like that, or what actually goes into an hourly cost. A lot of contractors that start out, they don't even know what goes out the door for an hourly labor rate.
Yeah.
They don't know how to calculate the overhead and all the burdens and things like that. So those kinds of principles are the same for every trade.
Catherine, I'm definitely writing your name down, and I will be in touch with you. If everything goes right, we will have this place open by December. Probably a little aggressive, but it's coming, and that's exactly what we will offer, is to have different services, different support groups come in and help new emerging firms figure out life and how to do all sorts of things. So we're going to need a lot of help from the industry. I think there's a lot of good people on this call right here that will be a big part of that, and I will definitely be calling on you.
Yeah, Ron, Catherine's right. I mean, so many of these small, even small contractors, they're bidding their bid section. They haven't read the front ends. They don't know if there's any liquidated damages. They don't know what the schedule is. All they're doing is putting a price together, and they have no idea what it could cost them, for cleanup and anything overtime or any other items that could be in the front ends that they don't even look at.
Right. No, I think that's true, Fred. I mean, it is a big challenge for them, and when and as you know, it's a very important. All the front ends can be very super important on a project.
Yes.
Especially a lot of the major owners. You get into industrial work, and some of the great big firms, they all have all kinds of safety programs and meetings you have to attend. If you don't figure that in, it can be a killer, and it's a major issue. Estimating's a major issue for all new firms, and I don't know if it's any if it's any more of an issue to minority firms, but it's just an issue for new firms. You know, it's a concept they're not used to, and it certainly can estimate certain parts of it, but man, there's a lot that goes into an estimate if you're going to make money. You know.
You know, a lot of people don't even know their costs. They don't know material costs. And a lot of people think they can buy a program, computer program, and do an estimate and everything's right. You know, again, it takes years once you buy a program to make sure you got your labor rates in, you know, your costs are in there right. And, you know, it takes time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Fred, that was one of my issues. I bought that Plan Swift estimating program. You know, I can do takeoffs, but putting a complete estimate together was kind of foreign to me. And I realized I missed a lot of stuff, you know, on some, thank God I didn't get a couple of those jobs that I put out.
Right. I mean, yeah, you know, you're plugging numbers in a computer and you don't know what the factors are. And you have to put in your own factors in there to make sure that what you're spitting out is correct.
But I think a big part of, you know, everybody on this call, a big part that we can do to help with these emerging firms is to be able to give them good feedback on what their number is, because you only learn what your true factors are and where the market is by getting good feedback from the GCs. And if we're not providing that, it makes it very difficult to know where the market is so that you can be competitive. From an estimator standpoint, it's the biggest challenge we have when we're trying to get participation is that it costs money. And when you know, we need these firms to be low, because when we go to our owners and developers and, you know, we're telling them, you know, we're showing them, you know, the bid tabs, and they're not low, they're not, you know, they're developers, they're in it to make money, right?
Last week you introduced me to him for the 50th time.
Oh shit. Well, I mean, you know, that's the old age.
Jason, can
Reminder,
you?
yeah, I'm on
I
it.
introduced her last week, she said.
Hey, Cameron, that's a great point. And you know, it's always amazing to me how difficult it is to get feedback from general contractors and prime subs. I've never quite understood that, because I was always willing at Rhodey to give any contractor, any bidder, feedback as to his number, as to where he was. You know, once everything's been decided, the contract's been let, you're doing the job. I mean, why not? I mean, it just I think it helps the contractor, it helps us as a company, helps the company get a little smarter for the next job. And I don't really understand why people don't do that. And I realize, you know, it's kind of a pain to get bugged, because you're on to your next job and you really don't want to go back and talk about a job that maybe you didn't even get. But I think it's an important part of the industry, and it is tough. I'm telling you, there's very few minority companies that ever get any feedback. That nobody will tell them anything. And you can call, you can email, maybe a dozen times, and then finally give up. You know.
Well, and some of the challenges right now just have to do with the fact of our world as we see it, because we're seeing a lot of owners that are pausing projects that may be, you know, so you're as an estimator kind of put into a little tough spot when people want feedback, but yet you don't know if the owner is, you know, ready to commit yet. And so there's that little dance and that timing, you know, between when you want feedback, because, you know, I get a bid and people want feedback the next day. Right. Well, you know, we got to push that back to when things have actually been signed and it's sealed, delivered. And then I think we need to, as a group, in order to help get this participation, we need to make a commitment that we're going to be giving good feedback after everything's been decided and it's a go or a no-go. Then you can give that feedback.
I would love to see. I'd love to see that.
I think Rochelle had her hand up. I don't know if she's still there.
You guys answered my question, so.
Well, another thing with all that, guys, Cameron, and that when these minorities bid, or even whoever bids, if somebody's got a bust in their bid and you know it, and people are going to use it, you can't burn these people, because you know when they have a $10,000 bust, you know that's a lot of money to a lot of these small companies. I had a situation 2 weeks ago. I had a bidder that a minority that bid to us, and his bid was half of everybody else. And luckily, I had a chance for him to come in, and we sit down and went through the drawings. Not that I didn't tell him where he was, but went through the drawings. And after we got through the drawings, he understood what he needed to do, and then he went back and put a price out. So,
Yeah.
you know, again, sometimes they don't understand.
Fred, that's a major problem. I'm dealing with a major issue like that right now with a sub, and I've dealt with 2 or 3 of those last year. And it doesn't help anybody to give a sub a contract if he's 30%, 40% lower than the other guy. I mean, it hurts everybody, and it actually kills the company. I mean, the companies I'm talking about will go out of business, and we'll all sit and wonder why. And but unfortunately, that goes on. I don't quite understand it. I think most GCs would definitely help a guy through a project if he's that significantly low, and will either not contract with him or put a contingency in and help him through. But some firms don't. You know, they take the price and say the heck with it.
Well, I think you have to have a, you know, internally as estimators, and I'm sure ASPE has some info on this, but you know, at some point you have to say, you know, this is a courtesy call on bid day. You're hanging, you know, I want you to verify your numbers, walk through some quantities with them possibly, you know, you can't give them numbers and all that, but you can definitely give them that courtesy call early enough so that they can look at it. And if they've got to pull their bid, they got to pull it to everybody. Or if they're going to revise it, they got to revise it to everybody, because nothing's worse than the feeling of calling them and saying, hey, you're hanging low, till you look at it and they turn around and they add 30 grand or something to their bid to you, but not to anybody else. And then you're at a disadvantage. So,
well, as a professional estimator, and I'm sure that some of us who cite our canons, those are the bid ethics that are part of our requirements, that you know, we have to be upfront with people and tell them that, hey, your bid is hanging low. You need to either honor your bid or you need to pull it from the market, especially if it's the last minute. But that's where you need to be able to help that sub realize they got a bad bid. And by telling them to pull it from the market does mean that. And then follow up with them and sit down with them and go through it. I'm gonna give a little kudos over there to Everett, who did some teaching at Rankin this last year. Went there and taught for 2 hours to their class. Rankin didn't even have an estimating class. So we're willing to help you out, Ron. Just let us all know. There's plenty of professionals on
I
there.
definitely will. That's a big part of what I want to accomplish when we get this space open. Is I want to bring your group in and bring some people in and have some classes and you know, do some teaching and some help with some projects that they're actually doing. I think it'll be a great service that we can give to the minority community. No question.
In years past, Ron, we gave estimating classes for years, and we just got away from it. We've talked about starting it again, and maybe this would be a push for us to do that.
Yeah.
And we went through the front ends, we went through GCs, we went through the mechanicals, and we did estimating programs for all of them. And maybe it's a time, you get this set up, we could maybe start doing that again. One of the things with ASPE National online, there is estimating classes that you can take and work with them. Another thing is we have a certification program. Catherine Taylor and I are both fellows. This means we put a lot of obligations in. We were on national boards and on the chapter. Catherine and I both have been with ASPE for over 40 years. And they have certification programs for general contractor, mechanical contractor, electrical contractors, subcontractors. So it's a good program that you need a minimum of 5 years, and you have to do a 2,500 word essay. Then you have to do some other paperwork to get ready for the exam, and then there's 2 8-hour exams that you have to take to be certified.
So Fred, are these classes that you're talking about now, it's starting up again or whatever, is that something that's going to be geared for people like me, or is it going to be for the already established estimators?
Can I take this one real quick? Because I was going to say, first of all, in the comments, I just put a link to their online courses, the ASPE. So you should see that kind of 2 or 3 comments up. But also, there's 2 things that we've done a couple of the last years. We didn't do this last year, but we were going to have the Estimating Academy. And I know Fred knows a little bit more about that. I haven't actually seen one, but there's also the bid simulation that we've done. It's a really good exercise. I had never done one. But we did it back in 2019, and it helped me a ton just to understand what was going on as a subcontractor who was kind of a weird specialty that isn't on every project. It helped me understand kind of the GC's perspective of how it works. So,
Ron?
How long has
This
it
is
been?
Monica, I think you have your next topic at your next meeting. You need to have this group there to talk about all the things that they can do and all the things that they're offering to your next WBC group. This is really, really good stuff.
Yeah, it would be good. And we'll do that.
When is it?
Tomorrow morning, 6 o'clock.
6
No,
o'clock.
Tomorrow, Saturday morning at 6. I'll be there.
You would be there. No,
I'll be there too if you let me do it while I'm driving to Tennessee.
I don't have a date yet. We're just kind of, I do hit and miss since we can't meet in person, but I think that'd be a great meeting and be great discussions. And I'll try to put some together in the next 30 days and I'll let everybody know.
Okay.
That'd be awesome. We had the last meeting we had a nice, we had a selection of some representatives from Tarleton, from SM Wilson, and from the Lawrence Group, and did a great presentation on the whole bidding process, the estimating and the putting of proposals together. And so we were able to go back and forth on a lot of the same questions we're talking about today. But I think that just to really get into that from the estimating side, I think would be awesome. They would be very well received. So we'll do that. I'll put that together.
Okay.
I'm going to use you guys.
Please do.
I need your help. And by the way, the Monica Bailey that was just talking from McCarthy happened to be one of those 100 St. Louisians that you need to know in business if you're going to succeed. Congratulations, Monica.
I think everybody on this call probably already knows me though.
No,
thank you, everybody.
What are you gonna say, Everett?
Well, I work with Monica every week, almost every day, and so we have quite a few conversations about diversity and minority participation because of the projects that we work on, which unfortunately they're much larger projects. So minority for us, especially for me, being on the electrical side, it's tough. It's really tough because most of the St. Louis electrical minorities are small firms. So when we get bids in for them, no matter what size of the project, there's a lot of pressure to make sure that I can set them up to succeed. that if they don't have the right number, the right scope, I can easily put them out of business. And that's
Right.
what we're here to do. We want to see them prosper too. So we take the extra step even farther than that to make sure that they're complete, they have good numbers, good scope, that we can set them up to succeed, our partner with somebody to succeed. Because if they fail, then our system fails. So
Yeah, that's the idea. I know everybody on this call supports this. I mean, otherwise we wouldn't all be here on a Friday morning at 7. I think we're
Monica.
convincing you guys to change your meeting time. But to Everett's point, he's absolutely right. I mean, there are many challenges, and there are challenges with non-minority firms. I mean, I think Ron was trying to harp on that. You know, this is just a tough industry in general, and we all know that because we're some of us are dinosaurs here. But the more people that are willing to help and sort of just change the culture and mentality of this, is like a lot of people still have the mentality that they're, you know, creating their competition, and you're not. I mean, nobody's gonna. None of these small minority GCs are going to try to compete with a McCarthy or the big MEPs out there. They just want to do work, and they want to do work well, and they want to work for all of these firms. So what Everett was saying, sometimes it's just a breakdown. We're a large GC, but we have several primes obviously in between, and a lot of you guys probably work for some of those large trade partners, but we need that middle group to help, nature and mature these companies to be able to bid to them, to be able to bid to us, because we're always going to be asking for participation on any and every project, no matter what the requirements are. So I keep telling people that this is not going away. People are like, I'll use them on this project and not on that project. Just form the relationship and keep it going. And then you'll be like, we're great partners.
Yeah.
I agree with that, Monica. Another thing is a lot of people don't want to mentor somebody. And again, with a lot of minority contractors, again, we couldn't, as a company I'm with, we can't at CPS, we can't compete with the Corrigans and Murphys and Rock Hills and all that, because on the bigger projects, but we have a sweet spot. We know what we can do. And again, if some of these GCs would work with these minorities and give them a section that they would have to put a price on to do the bidding and buy the material and run the job and install it, a lot of them could afford to do that. But a lot of these jobs, the minorities can't bid it because they don't have the expertise to do it. Plus, they don't have the capital to fund it when the project's going on.
Yeah.
One of the things that maybe an immediate solution, Keith Crawford put in the chat about his services. I'd like maybe Keith Crawford to tell a little bit about his background and his experiences and what he can offer to people for an immediate solution. Keith?
Well, thanks, Steve. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
I'm St. Louis contractor. I've been in construction industry in St. Louis for pretty much all my career. I ventured off into the automotive industry briefly, and I worked away from St. Louis for about 3 years. But construction estimating is the key. I did a complimentary introductory estimating course for MOCAN about 5 years ago. And I say the same thing now that I said then, and I'll say tomorrow. Sales is the initiator. And you guys, all of you call yourselves estimators. I call you sales engineers. All the other industries call you sales engineers. You have to know how to do it. You have to know how to sell it. And the other thing that gets missed, I hear you talking about peaks and valleys, and that's real important. But the first thing guys need to know about the financial end is the break even. how they've got themselves set up, and how they're going to operate, how much work they need, how much markup they need to get on that work, and if they can do it. And when you answer those questions, you can take care of a lot of other things. And I put my information in the chat. I'm still available.
And you work for independent organizations, you work as an independent, you have a company that'll provide estimating services to a lot of the companies on the call today, correct?
Yes, now, McCarthy is an example. I've worked for larger companies than McCarthy, but I'm not soliciting business from McCarthy, but they have a lot of subcontractors who come through who have issues that I can take care of them. And that's just it.
So I've known Keith for a long time, and I've referred Keith to a lot of the contractors I work with, and he's helped them out with takeoffs and estimate. Does a nice job, and so I continue to recommend him to different firms. So it's a good guy.
So
thanks, Ryan.
We need more of them. Need another 10 of them. Yeah, Robert.
I had a question. A while back, I was working in Alberici, and once a month they used to have Alberici University.
Yeah.
I don't know if anybody still does something like that. Maybe Ron could do it, or maybe Monica could start it at McCarthy.
Alberici still does that. They do a very good job with it. Precious Jackson runs it now, and of course it like everything else slowed down in the pandemic where they didn't meet. I don't know if they're meeting in person yet, but they're still very active, and they do a very nice job. And a lot of the minority firms go through that and learn a lot. And they have estimating classes there, and they really have classes in almost all the different segments of the industry. So yeah, still very active. Yeah, Monica needs to create McCarthy University and compete again, kind of like Harvard and Yale, you know?
Yes.
I got a question about just a general question. If one of you guys estimators can answer, what being cost from estimating services, providing estimating services to someone like me, what would be the cost of like an hourly rate or something that I should be expecting?
For the
Robert, you got
estimating
the
service,
answer?
the actual guy that's giving you the estimating cost. I remember doing that on the side, and I was getting paid minimum wage myself, but that was back 25 years ago too. So, but I would say that you're looking at what he's going to bring to the table. There's different ways of doing it, Jerry. I've seen people give a lump sum fee like $50 to give you an estimate, and then if you get the job, either get the job or you make money on the job, you turn around and give the guy another 50 or another 100, depending on the productivity on the job. You got to trust who you're getting the numbers from. I'm sure that you'll see names out here like Fred's been around a long time, and Catherine. So they'll have a lot of experience as an owner that would be able to tell you the cost of a person, how long it's going to take. But as far as an estimating service, something like pre-construction, I think that if the cost of the job is say $1 million, the maximum I would pay if that was $1 million carpentry bid is probably 0.5% to that person for pre-construction services. And that's a lot of money. But if, at $1 million carpentry job, that's no little chump change job either. So.
Yeah, John, we at CPS, we have went out and got some estimating help because we were snowed running projects, and that was costing us like $55 an hour.
Yeah.
For the person to do the takeoff. We still put the bid together and everything. He was just doing the takeoff.
It's a lot of what Keith does too, is just the takeoff, and then he will work with you to put a number together. But he's mostly trying to give you all the items that you need to put a number to. So he provides a good service, and I think Keith charges on an hourly basis, but he probably has different ways of charging, depending on, so yeah, you give him a call, Jerry, because he'd be a good guy for you to talk to.
Yeah, Ron, I would speak to anybody privately about that because I do charge different rates for different
Yeah,
circumstances.
I think it depends on the company you're working with and what the trades are and what you're estimating, you know, it's not a one answer that you can give, but carpentry is relatively simple to estimate compared to some of the mechanical trades and electrical. Or at least
Jerry, maybe you can negotiate $15 an hour.
Yeah.
That includes nap time. It can work.
I think Keith probably choked on John's comment about 15 minimum wage. So, but
20 years ago, though, Ron. Okay, I don't want to, Billy, we have we've been on this call for a good hours plus. I don't want to continue to drag it on too long. Some of us have to get to work, and there's a couple other announcements. I got a little tidbit from Everett, and I do appreciate Everett. I know that there's a lot of firms on here right now that are not members of our society. Our society has different levels of estimator, affiliate. They have a student, which you have to be one of our scholarship winners to be a student, but there's memberships in there. So we'd like you to be a member, and that will help gather the relationships that we have across the board here. So if you want to help out our chapter, which will help you, is also become a member. There are a couple quick announcements. The next month we have our inauguration of our next board, which I think Catherine or Frank will introduce us. If you're in the batter's box right now, Catherine. So Frank's going to be leading, and you're going to be coming on deck in case Frank can't make it. But we'll have that, and then we'll have a meeting next week, which is on safety, estimating safety in the work. That's the other topic we'll have next month, plus our inductees and our scholarship winners. So I want to make sure those are right. We have our national convention set for San Antonio. The last thing I've heard, it is going to be going on this August. So those who haven't heard that, and I'm sure Frank and Catherine know before I do, but we hope to have everybody at this next meeting again. And Ron, please keep us informed of where you're going to be and when it's going to be open.
I
And
definitely will.
glad to help you. And for those on the call that I don't know, there's a few names I've seen too. Make sure that you send me your email account so that I can, excuse me, so that I can make sure I make contact with you so that we can talk about helping you in the meantime. With that, I will convene the meeting at 8:28 a.m. and I hope everybody has a safe and happy weekend. Okay.